So today I'm gonna tap into a little bit more deep topic. And yet, if you start to speak about it and you start to share about it, many women have this aha, I didn't know. Oh, I do know, but I didn't know they had a name. And around this topic, there is so much shame and taboo. I know that from my own experience. I know that from the research I've done and the women I work with. And today I have a very beautiful special guest who I met actually over the internet. How lucky are we that we have this global World Wide Web where we can connect and support each other and share. And the reason we tap into this topic today is to inspire you, to let you know you're not the only one, and to also share from experience, like what did we do? How did we overcome? Because we're gonna listen to my guest's story in a moment. But I know from my own experience, I, for many years, thought I was the only one dealing with certain kind of challenges. And especially when there is a lot of shame and taboo around it, you don't want to speak about the topic because you feel dirty, not understood. I mean, there's no solution, so why should I? And you start to overcompensate. And we women are so good in overcompensating and hiding ourselves, and trying to become someone. And I mean, you are one of the female way listeners or viewers. In the female way, we want to become more of ourselves, becoming more of you. You don't have to change. You don't have to become someone else. You just become more of you. We're coming home. So today I have an amazing guest. I'm very, very honored to have her, Katrin With-Love. And she's from Canada. And she's in the same field. She's working with women. She's going to share a lot more about it. I'm going to have a little short introduction today because I like her. She's a very beautiful speaker. I was impressed by her use of words and the way she touches the topic. So I want her to explain what she's doing, who she is, how she overcame, and the most important, because that's what we're all waiting for. What are the tips and tricks? What can I do today? Okay, warm welcome for Katrin. Welcome, my love.
Thank you so much, Humita. It is an honor and a pleasure to be here with you in this conversation. Such an important topic, not talked about enough. And my hope is that my story is going to inspire and it's going to help women, vulva owners, vagina owners feel less alone in what is really a private pain.
So the pain, what are we overcoming? The vaginismus, that's the title for it. Vaginismus, I think you can use both words. Basically not being able to open up to life. And what we mean by that is you have the vulva, you have the vagina, and it's basically not being able to receive anything in your vagina. And for some, it can be only not receiving the penis. And for some, it can be also not receiving a finger, matches, or a tampon.
Exactly right. Yeah. Vaginismus, I sometimes refer to as a panic attack in your vagina. And that is, of course, such a surface level explanation, but I hope it gives a little bit of imagery as to this body response. And this is what it really is. In our medical community, unfortunately, if you do get lucky enough in the journey to come to a place of definition, of getting a label, which isn't always useful, but in the medical community, it would be referred often as a sexual dysfunction. And I feel like this is the most disempowering way that we could ever put it. Because as soon as we find out from someone that we have a sexual dysfunction, what do we automatically create that as? Well, it's a definition of who we are. We take on the identity of being dysfunctional. And I feel like that sends us down the slippery slope, which really vaginismus actually is. So vaginismus, in the way that I like to refer to it, is simply a protective body response. It's simply something that your body is doing because it perceives a danger outside of itself. And what does it do? Well, let me help. Let me protect. Let me close because we need to keep ourselves safe.
That's of course I totally agree there, because your lower energy center, so your vulva, your vagina, and a little bit more up is that's where your safety is. That's your base, that's your core, that's the core of your being. So if there's something or your body feels it needs to be protected because of fear or anxiety, it closes up. And if you don't feel safe in the world, or you don't feel safe in your body, you close up. I mean, I was writing it down. You said a panic attack, but that means it was a 24/7 panic attack, because
Exactly.
I mean, you think of a moment because fear faces you and you have the panic attack, but this is a 24/7 panic attack, what can last for years.
That's right. And that's why it's a cycle. So essentially, the body reacts to either the attempt of any sort of vaginal penetration or anal penetration, the actual experience of it, right? Or even the thought of that, the perceived danger that is at play. So I'll share some of my stories so we can really paint a picture here. I grew up in a very left brain analytical kind of household where what was really valued was structure, it was performance, it was achievement, and there was a lot of control in the family, right? So automatically I took on all of these notions that what makes me valuable in the world is when I've got my chin up straight, when I act in my masculine very often, in my alpha. And what's not valued is one, emotional expression, because that was something that wasn't celebrated. I wasn't taught about, right? Who is, unfortunately, in our society. And essentially, I grew up also in the chaos of the family structure that had me put my head in the books, really focus on the high grades, making my parents proud, and not so much knowing who I am. Knowing who I actually am. I wanted to show my value to my parents so that I can get the love. And the beautiful Dr. Gabor Mate actually puts it that our primary need in the world is the need for attachment, the need for love. And as soon as that need is at risk, we set aside our secondary need, which is also very high, but not quite making the cut of number one, of our need for authenticity. And so what happens when we need the love, but we need to put on a mask or be someone else, right? We set our authenticity aside and we don't quite know who we truly are. So my femininity, my sensuality, my softness got put in a box and it got set aside for exploration one day down the line when it actually becomes necessary for one reason or another. And vaginismus is what became that necessity. So fast forward, I am, 18 years old at this time. I have my first boyfriend. We love each other. We have lots of fun together. And we try to have PIV sex, penis and vagina sex. We hadn't tried any other form of penetrative sex before this. So this was the first time of, all right, let's have what society calls the only sex, right? What I experienced was what felt like a brick wall. There was no opportunity for entry. It was like my body put up its no, and it said no for me and said, nope, this isn't happening. My conscious mind wanted it. I desired it. I trusted him subconsciously, potentially, but definitely consciously. And there was no way his penis was getting in. A couple of times later, we're trying to force it in a little bit, pushing, seeing, okay, maybe it was just the first time. The first time is also supposed to hurt, as we hear in our society, which creates that expectation, the self-fulfilling prophecy. And with that force, with that pushing, I now feel excruciating pain. So think of a knife that's being warmed up over the fire. It's getting nice and gold. And then you're inserting that into your body. The worst pain I've ever experienced. Mm-hmm. That is what told me that, okay, after a few attempts, something is off. And I started to remember back a couple of years before that, when I first tried wearing a tampon, how also I was doubting whether I had a vaginal opening because the tampon wasn't going in. It was going in the garbage over and over again.
Yeah, wow. So you were born with it.
Yes, this is what is called primary vaginismus from the very first time we tried penetration.
Yeah, because there are women who were born with it. There are women who have it after a traumatic experience or after giving birth, or so it can also happen somewhere in your life. There are women who are getting it when they're a little bit more matured. But you were one of them who had that from the beginning.
That's right. I believe that for some of us, we are born with this protective body response already being active in our system, in our nervous system. And that may be, if you have this belief system, it may be as a result of past life experiences, the soul journey that our soul has already been on, and therefore the trauma that it's carrying on an energetic level. And in other cases, I also trust that while we were babies, when we were toddlers, our vagina was working just as it would if we really did feel safe in the world. But there were events and elements and circumstances that actually led to the tightness. So we can never know, but through personal exploration, through self-awareness, we get to actually make so many connections as to why our body is acting this way.
Yeah, and there are two sides to that, in my opinion. I mean, I see often that it was running also in the lineage and in the family, like the mother was dealing with it, the grandmother was dealing with it, or it can be indeed, like you're mentioning, the safety, how you came to the world, or the 9 months when you were in the belly of your mom, how safe did you feel in there? Because that's, I mean, the moment of conceiving is when your whole development starts. So the whole 9 months have a big influence. And I'm curious hearing your opinion, because what I realized often, the traditional approach is finding out where and when it happens in order to come with a solution, or in order to solve it or to cure it. Mm-hmm. And what I have realized with working with many women dealing with it, and my own experience, is that's not really so important why and when it happened, because it is impossible to really hit the nail there, because it can be 10 different reasons, or a reason or a moment it's not in your consciousness anymore because it was too traumatic or whatever reason. But in the holistic approach, we're more going towards, where do we want to go? How do we want to feel? How do we want to feel on a body level? How does the connection with the body looks like and feels like anyways? Mm-hmm. This is more where you start this journey. I'm curious, what do you think?
I 1000% agree with you. I wasted a lot of time in my life trying to zero into the moment of when I got broken, and therefore how I can trace back the steps and fix myself. When we focus on this, and when we feel like there's something to fix in the first place, we're already moving further and further down the cycle of pain, because then there's shame, then there's all this confusion, which of course doesn't help us to come to a place of acceptance and forgiveness of ourselves, most of all, and finding safety in opening. So I believe that it's important for us to get curious about the elements that may have been at play, but not to dwell on that. Because what's most important is, like you said, where we're going, not where we've been.
Yeah, beautiful. Well said. I just wrote some nice words of you down, because it really touches me, and it hits me, I can better say. I mean, the sexual dysfunction, being broken, and the need to be fixed. These terms, I mean, they can't help because they don't know better. You know, we go to a psychologist or a psychiatrist and we get Prozac because to calm ourselves down, and then maybe we get fixed because we're not functioning. And this is not working. This is just working against us, because in the end, there's nothing broken, but we're like we had our little talk in the intro, is the female way becoming the woman you're supposed to be. You're coming back home. Because I can tell you, I don't know how that was for you. It was subconscious, but you feel already not complete. I mean, it's natural, this body and welcoming a penis and receiving is something very natural as part of womanhood. So if we're not able to, I mean, we feel already not complete. It doesn't really help to put all kind of labels on there. And we know whether it's conscious or subconscious. How was that for you? You knew, you felt it, no?
Yes. And looking back at it, really, I was able to understand it more. Before that, it was a feeling, it was a sensation of, I need to always get somewhere. Like it's not, there's no wholeness in the present moment. And I believe that came very much from the conditioning of being a high performer and the perfectionism tendencies that I picked up as a result of my upbringing. Also OCD, by the way. A lot of the women that I support, we also kind of see there's OCD. This is called obsessive compulsive disorder. I don't like calling it a disorder, but it's just a tendency in order for us to have control of life, right? It's all of those little examples of things that don't make sense, but we do anyways, like always closing the door, for example. But what's true is that the conditioning that we have all grown up with, we've all grown up in a shame-steeped culture around sex and pleasure, that from the very youth created a disconnection from everything below the belt of our bodies. I noticed in myself, yes, I used to love dancing and I would dance with my friends, but I'd never move my hips. I'd never be in the sensual energy of that. There was a part of me that felt like it wasn't me. Why? First of all, because we never put languaging to it. We never called our vulva, our vagina. I never looked in the mirror to explore that part of my body. And hence, what we don't put words to doesn't quite exist in our mind and in our subconscious, especially if we don't have sex education. There's parts of the world with absolutely zero of that. What we don't talk about doesn't exist. And hence, we come to life, maybe in relationship, maybe on our marriage day, on our wedding day, that evening, we start to want for that part of the body to cooperate with us, but we had never paid any attention to it. We never created a healthy relationship to it. So how can we expect our vulva, for our vagina, to open and welcome something when we had never talked to her before? We had never helped her feel safe in the world.
Indeed. Yes, yes, yes. I always find it interesting, those labels, OCD. The moment I hear them, I forget them right away, on purpose, because it's putting yourself in a little box. But I do agree that you can call it perfectionism, overcompensating, not being fully present in life, always looking for the next thing. You're basically running in life, and I call it more the pushing and the pulling. It's the life where you really need to work. You push, you pull, you're making it happen, and you go. And like you said in your beautiful introduction, like coming from a more left brain family, and very structured and very goal orientated, basically, and less feeling, less heart connected. This is what I see a lot, that there is some disconnection because you just don't feel understood, because you're different. and you're an emotional, sensual, free being. And somewhere inside you can feel that. And then you look around and you're like, but where am I? Where's my belonging?
Exactly.
Yeah, I totally get that. Hey, and can I ask you a more intimate question?
Yeah, please.
What did you do? When did things change? I mean, you were sharing your beautiful example when you were 18 years old and you went into the pushing and pulling. But what did you do? And how, when did you open to the world and your body?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to share about that. And before I go there, just because I was inspired by what you said, the heart connectedness not being present in the family unit, what that also reminded me of is how I would see particular emotions out there. For example, the more intense ones like anger. Mm-hmm. I would see that in my parent, and I would look and say, "Ooh, that's the monster coming out right now. That's the chaos. That's the thing I'm supposed to be protecting myself from and careful with." And as soon as I recognize that that monster also lives in here, because everybody experiences anger, what I did was I swallowed it down. No. That over there lives in me? No way. Suppressing it, pushing it down, not creating the space for it to speak in a healthy way. All of that creates that emotional suppression, the tension that then gets stored in our musculature, in our fascia, wherever that may be. For some people, it's the neck. For some people, it's the shoulders. For me, it was the pelvic floor muscles. And what the body does is it creates this container of holding. There's the top here in our expression, because that gets shut down very, very much. And then there's the bottom part in our root chakra, the vulva, right? It creates just sort of this holding of emotion, and it builds and it builds and it builds. And sometimes we might erupt like a volcano, and then we see that, oh, shoot, that was scary too. Let's not do that again. And we shut that down again. And I feel like that is just such a massive component of the experience of vaginismus. It's the emotional suppression that we need to take a look at, to make friends with, to say, thank you, emotions. You have taught me so much. I'm going to play with you now. I'm going to express you fully and healthily. And from there, we don't have to carry so much heaviness with us. And we can start to feel light. We can allow for the playfulness to come in, the curiosity to bubble up naturally. That sexual desire can also start to come back as a result, because that for me was at a zero at a point in my life.
Of course. Hallelujah. I know, of course. No, it's a very important part you're just mentioning, the emotional intelligence, and that anger, when it's dealt with in a healthy way, it's an amazing emotion, because on the other side of anger, there is the pleasure. Anger and pleasure are from the same family. If you're allowing your anger and really are able to feel your anger, embrace your anger, and especially live out your anger. I always advise my women to express their anger. It can be by screaming in the sea, or going near a train station, or moving your arms, or go shaking, or go wildly dancing, or put like one of my favorite Punjabi songs on where you really stamp your feet and but express your anger. But if we had examples of mind anger, which was even offensive and threatening, then we're like, hey, but I don't want that. I'm a good girl. No. And then you start to suppress and block. And yeah, that's beautiful that you mentioned that, because I see that a lot. So when were you ready for your transformation, and when you started to understand what was going on in your body, and that you were not dysfunctional?
It was definitely a gradual process. So this is how it looked like for me. First, I went to the family doctor when I mustered up the courage to go talk to someone. And I did. And I told him it didn't quite help in my case that it was a male figure, because I already had some subconscious fear of the masculine that I only realized later on, right? And he said, oh, you just must not be ready for sex yet. How old are you again? 18? Yeah, your body just must not be there yet. You can just wait until you're ready, wait until it works. And if you have any challenges again within like a few months, a year, come back to me. I heard that and I said, damn, isn't it, but all right, I guess there's no help here. I'm going to go back home. A couple of months later, I come back and I put my foot down and I said, I know I'm ready for sex. I desire it. I am educated about it to the degree that I feel is necessary. And his response then was, well, why don't you just try to drink a glass of wine then and relax? And in my mind, I'm thinking, you don't think I've tried that? First of all, this is a doctor telling me at an age that in Canada isn't a legal drinking age to be drinking. Of course, I had tried that. And a lot of us have. We've tried other things as well. I remember getting blackout drunk in order to try to have penetrative sex. And
alcohol, drugs, weed, ecstasy. I mean,
yeah, those are the depths that we go to.
Yeah.
From there, I wanted a requisition to the gynecologist. And even when I went to the gynecologist after the few-month waiting time, I also didn't get any explanation or hope or understanding. And she actually did a quick sort of, it wasn't a pelvic exam, but an analysis there. And she said, your vagina looks okay. Everything's fine. But I guess in a sexual context, you're still having issues. And I'm like, yep. Okay. Thank you for the help. I try to have a pelvic exam. And this is a very common experience where on those crinkly sheets of paper at the doctor's office that already feels like such an unsafe place, what we have is our butts might lift off the table, our legs might close automatically as the speculum is approaching our vulva or our vagina. We may see shaking happening, which is also a very normal experience. This is the body releasing what it's been holding. And my pelvic exam didn't happen because of these things. Thank goodness, because it would have re-traumatized me.
Of course.
And you get re-traumatized all the time. So after that, I went to visit a sex therapist. And we had to share with my boyfriend at the time's parents, who had benefits for sex therapy, what we're going through, which in itself was a massive milestone in my mind in opening the conversation so that I can go see a sex therapist. And unfortunately, though that did give me some information, I was also left with that feeling of, she's trying to go back in time in my history to determine where did things go wrong. She asked me about my self-pleasure habits, which is a good thing to discuss, but I know that I wasn't ready for it. And I felt attacked. I felt like someone's trying to rummage in my soul and find some answers. What I did find out about there, though, was about dilating, the process of dilating. Unfortunately, this is one of the first things that we're told when it comes to overcoming vaginismus. And dilators are these tools, unfortunately also plastic, but silicone are better, right? Of gradually increasing tools that can mimic a penetrative experience. They look like dildos, for example, or tampon shapes. I tried to dilate by myself. And I'm about to use the R word here, so trigger warning. It felt like I was raping myself. There were no instructions on how to create a state of relaxation in my system. I was simply told to use the smaller one. And then when that goes in, the bigger one, and on and on and on until I can insert my partner's penis in my vagina. The goal here is to never be a receptive partner to another human being's body. The goal here is for us to enjoy a sexual experience, is to find ourselves, is to find our authentic eroticism, to be in touch with our desire, to feel a sense of freedom in our body, safety. So dilators cause more pain than good. But over time, through the emotional healing journey that I went on, I was able to incorporate them slowly with a self-pleasure practice to create some openness in my system. Nervous system downregulation is very important. Healing the inner union, the divine feminine and masculine. Letting go and relinquishing of control in our lives, not only in the bedroom, but everywhere else, in order to find safety in surrender, is really what this journey is all about. And any form of sex is a very vulnerable experience, but especially as women, penetrative sex, letting another human being inside of our body, is the most vulnerable thing that we can do. So of course we have some challenges with it. And even women who don't experience vaginismus, we have so many challenges around sex, pleasure, eroticism. And normal. It's all
So
normal.
when did you lose your virginity?
At 18 years old, when we tried to push the penis in, you could say that that was the first penetrative experience, just a little bit. But
when was the penetration, the real penetration, where you really enjoyed it and when it was painless, without pain, pain-free?
Yes, that was 6 years later at 24 years old. That was pain-free penetration. And I like to call it my sexual debut rather than anything that we lose or gain, right? But the sexual debut happened at 24. It was with a partner whom I did not tell about vaginismus, because part of my own success with this was to take on this identity of I'm the girl who has always been able to have sex, right? It's that taking on of who I am, who I'm becoming. And that in itself, in its nature, was very helpful for me. And you can tell.
You say able to have sex. This is where I want to put a note, because I don't want to call it able to have sex, because you can have sex in like a million trillion ways. For me, it's like you say, it's solid the penetration where the penis goes into the vagina. That's what vaginismus is. But having sex can be a million other things, because I sincerely believe, especially from a tantric perspective, if you know and you awaken your inner tantrika, having sex, you don't, 9 out of 10 times, you don't even reach the penetration anymore. And then you have been playful with your beloved or yourself for like hours, 6, 8, 10 hours. And it's making love with God. And that's sex. And that's all is sex. Because often I hear questions like, what? You had a relationship for 13 years and you didn't have sex? I'm like, ho, stop. I also share with the women, like, there is so much more. And if you embody this beautiful vessel and you become the woman you're supposed to be, and you allow passion and pleasure in your life, sex is so much more than just penetration. How is that for you?
That was totally the way that I came to look at sex after the years, and probably even after 24 years old. I had always been able to have sex at 18 and even earlier with my own self, having solo sex, which was very much doused in shame. And of course, that's a part of a lot of our stories. What's true too is this PIV sex, penis and vagina sex experience did happen at 24 years old, but I hadn't yet come to my sexual confidence. I hadn't yet discovered what I actually want. The different erotic languages that exist, just like different love languages exist, the intensity that I may have wanted, or the energetic sex, or the breath work that can be incorporated in sexual experiences to create this full body orgasmic bliss.
For this topic, I mean, you're tapping into 3 different topics here, which is like, we can fill 10, 20, 30 conversations with that. Like, what do you like? Finding out your pleasure, finding out your desires, finding out your blueprint, what kind of type you are, indeed your love language, but also your language when you are in your sacred union. And it changes all the time, how to communicate with words, without words, the ability to play with your senses. I mean, all these things are topics on their own, but yet so important, especially for women dealing with vaginismus.
Absolutely. And that's where really we've got to start. After my journey of 6 years,
you're ready.
Start before you're ready. Absolutely. We will never be 100% ready.
No, especially with vaginismus, you're never ready. There is so much fear involved. Fear and shame that you rather do not start and put your head under the carpet and just keep on going.
Yeah, I swept vaginismus under the rug for such a long time, focusing on other things. I told myself, I'm going to be this career woman. That's it. I'm going to be the cool aunt, but not have any kids of my own, probably not have a partner, right? There was all of those images of what my life would look like when I hadn't yet taken any action in overcoming vaginismus. And what's also very important to mention is that we've got to start with the erotic components, with finding our authentic erotic nature before we try to attempt any sort of penetration. And I'm just going to wait for you to come back. I see you're frozen a little bit.
Welcome in the tropics. The internet was gone for a moment.
That's okay. I know exactly what I was saying. I can just continue. You'll be able to cut it back in.
I will go for it.
And what's super important is to actually take the erotic exploration that I did at the end of my journey, after I was able to have the PIV sex that was pain-free, to infuse that as the second pillar in the way that I lead women through this of the sexual liberation journey. And it's not just an overcoming vaginismus journey, it's a sexual liberation journey. The first pillar is emotional healing. Second is finding and embracing our authentic sexual self. And only after that comes physical healing.
That's really beautiful. But if I'm listening to you today, I'm one of the listeners and the viewers, and I'm getting really enthusiastic. And maybe I don't have vaginismus, but I'm dealing with certain intimacy challenges. What can I do to start today? What advice can you give me?
To start today, the very first thing that's important to do is to help ourselves downregulate our nervous system. Mm-hmm. I believe that we can do a whole bunch of work on ourselves, but if we hadn't found that state of relaxation within, and also the process of release that happens as a result of this downregulation, we can have a lot of information come in, a lot of experiences come in, but they will never stick.
No. So it's a constant repetition of dance and meditation and self-awareness.
That's right. I will give one very practical practice, though, that I feel like is absolutely critical in overcoming vaginismus. I discovered it about 2 years ago now. And this is the work of Dr. David Berzelli. It's simply a system that he put together to help us activate the release response that every human being has on this planet, that is the same as animals. Mm-hmm. This is an innate tremoring of the body that isn't created consciously where we shake, but we actually allow ourselves to activate neurogenic muscle tremors by the central nervous system to help us release the tension and trauma that's been stored in our musculature and our fascia. If we start there, we get to experience often an emotional release, some revelations as part of this practice as well, memories coming up perhaps that were traumatic, as well as the very physical release according to the body's wisdom, because the body knows where things were stored. They may be in your hips, they may be in your right shoulder, maybe there was an injury there. This practice that I was trained in and I guide people in is one of the most beautiful places to start.
Beautiful. So for everyone who is with us now, this is also where you can start with today yourself, like bringing back that vibration in your body by moving, moving your body, by bringing your attention there. And it's actually with the vibration that an opening can come and insights can come and things start to move. Is there anything that we didn't touch that you would like at this end of our conversation want to bring in before we leave?
Yeah, let's see what might be relevant here, what comes through. We didn't touch on the piece of intuition. And even in the process of me tuning into what I want to say, this entire journey is coming back to a place of self-love, knowing ourselves, the female way, right? And connecting back to our body's wisdom where our intuition lives. It is through movement. Stagnation is the lack of life, right? Vaginismus, in a sense, is a lot of stillness, a lot of stagnation. We need to bring our awareness back from the mind into the body. This embodiment of our power. And with that comes such an innate power of knowing. We know our intuition guides us in life. We make choices more easily. We just know ourselves and we shamelessly, powerfully express that wisdom in the world.
Amazing. You're doing very, very beautiful work. Keep on going. It's so important. And something to remember for all the women suffering with vaginismus or something with, there are many, many variations on this. Something you need to know is like with everything, there's a beautiful quality to it as well, because there is a guard in your life. Most of the times, two guards, and in your case, they're in front of the vagina, and they're just very good in their work. And because the body doesn't feel safe, they completely closed the entrance. And like you said, when you go through it, it can feel like rape. It can feel like intrusion. What's the right word? Like, say again?
Intrusion, exactly as you said.
Yeah, exactly. And women with vaginismus, they're blessed with amazing guards who take care of them. So when you are able to transform that, then what you say, Katrin, your intuition, your self-love, your light, your clairvoyant behavior is so on. Often, these are the most amazing, talented beings. And basically, when you're ready to open up, because never give up. Often we were told like your family doctor, like, okay, you're not ready, take a while, wait a little bit, and then you keep on waiting for your entire life. And then 10% of the women, they have been told, I'm so sorry for you in this lifetime, it's not going to work. But even then, don't give up, because it has so much more to it. And if you listen to Katrin, there was a lot coming back. And it's basically saying yes to life. It is basically saying yes to life. Because women with vaginismus, they're also suffering with all kinds of illnesses and depression and perfectionism and overdoing. And I can go on. Because of not completely and totally and fully saying yes to life. So it's important. And this is also why we speak about it. And I feel there will be another conversation and another conversation. This was only the beginning. So the messages keep going. You're not alone. And there's light at the end of the tunnel. Katrin, thank you. I'm very honored that you are here with me today. I love the way you speak. I feel your love. I feel your heart. I think you're doing an amazing job. Where can people find you?
People can find me on my website, KatrinWith-Love.com. I have a free course on there called Putting Vaginismus in the Past, an amazing place to start. The other place is Instagram, either at Katrin-With-Love or at Vaginismus Sisters, where we've carved out all vaginismus guidance.
Amazing. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for your time, and till we meet again.
Thank you so much. Bye.